Welcome to the Head Over Heels podcast, dedicated to helping you build the business and life of your dreams. We'll be sharing tips on management, leadership, strategy, marketing and mindset, and much more. Let's get started with your host, Angela Cedran.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Heads Over Heels. Today I have a wonderful guest. I'm so excited to have her on board, my good friend Louise Fitzgerald. And we're going to be talking about how to use virtual franchising to build financial resilience. Louise, welcome.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you. You're so accomplished. You are one of my first authors. So you've written the Pink Hard Hat, Building the Resilient Woman. You are a multiple-time entrepreneur. You've had an amazing life and career in construction. And now you've gone a complete 180 and have started a new business, which we'll talk about today as well. Also, I wanted to thank you. You've become such a wonderful friend to me, such an incredible source of support. And I love the fact that we share this common passion of helping women build financial resilience. So tell me a little bit about about you. Why did you start a business for the first time? What made you an entrepreneur?
Look, I was yanked out of my happy, comfortable bubble in 2003. Angela, and I think like many of us, I had a couple of kids, I was married, I was working part-time, and it would have probably just continued in that same vein for years. Like many of us, we do what we can, we're participating, we're making money, or making a contribution to the household, and, had there been no interruption beyond that, I would have just stayed doing the same. But in 2003, I don't know if you remember, but back then, in the beginning of 2003, the Iraq War was called, and my husband, a reservist soldier, was invited along. So I remember first thinking, well, why do you have to go when we have a 2 and a 4-year-old? And he responded, well, I have to go. And it's like anyone now, whether they're in the health working space or they're first responders or they're emergency workers or they're firemen, they're trained to perform a service, and then when the world needs them, they show up. That's what they have to do. Yeah. And my husband was no different. So he had to go. He attended, and it was a period of our life where it was scary. I had to truly contemplate for the very first time that maybe he wouldn't make it back. It was... they suited them up for chemical warfare, and we were cut off from all communication. So that was the period where I thought, look, I can't control what's happening here, but I have to control what's happening here. And that was the advent of me playing a bigger game when it came to financial, a financial contribution.
It must have been quite scary. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of women in the same situation at the moment where they've got family, they've got husbands going, even men who have wives who are nurses or doctors going and working on the front line at the moment. And there are so many that are sick now as well who effectively won't be coming back.
Look, I think you continue just living your normal life until you may have an interruption at some point. And I'm not a person that comes from a place of fear. I come from a place of confidence, and I am normally very proactive, but sometimes you have to think beyond today because you are thrust into an environment where you were forced to. And many of us are in that now. So no one could have anticipated the fires of January, the floods of February, and COVID-19 now. No one could have seen that coming, despite the most beautiful journaled anticipated expectations for 2020, here we are, and life happens. Yeah. And so from that place, we have to be prepared to show up on a different level than we have before. We either shrink away or we rise to the challenge. That's basically it. We have a decision.
Well, you're certainly the queen of that, and you rose to that challenge in 2003. So tell us a little bit more about what you did.
My response was to insulate our family financially because I thought, I thought I can't control the implications of him and his well-being, but I have to insulate the financial unravelling should something occur to him. When if he, in the unlikely but possible event he didn't make it home, I wanted to make sure we could keep our family intact, because I had 2 children under 4, and my first obligation was to be home with them.
Yeah.
And I have seen what it's like to close up to have that disruption. When I was very young, when I was just 2, my dad left for work and he didn't make it home that day. And 12 hours later, my mum had to leave as well to raise the 5 of us. She was widowed at the age of 38 with 5 children under 12. And I did see close up the cost of a life interrupted. So to that end, I think I grew up thinking I want to be financially resilient. I want to know that should my circumstances change, my lifestyle and health doesn't have to. Yep. Because as you can see, it's often not the first thing that happens. It's the financial unraveling or implication of that can be even more devastating. A family member could get cancer, for instance, and survive that, but 4 years later, you're still dealing with the financial disruption that came from it. The same with COVID-19. You could survive the actual flu, but not actually the financial disruption that follows. So insulation for me became more important than just notion. It became
the driving force,
my obligations.
Yeah.
And at first myself and my children, and with a goal of, I guess, keeping us united. And then beyond that, how do I show up for other women as well? How do I share that with and for them?
Yeah. So tell us what you did. I mean, what you did actually is how the Pink Hard Hat came about.
Yes. So I went on to become, at the time, there were really 2 asset classes I was familiar with. One was shares and one was property development or property. And obviously for me, property was a known, it was a known enterprise. I thought I'd seen and understood the idea of real estate, bricks and mortar, and I decided to become an investor and then an agent and then a property developer. And it was the property development that took my attention, because at the end of the day, I wanted to make a large sum of money. I was prepared to take a large risk to achieve it. I remember saying to my husband, I've done all the research, I've done all the study, I've done everything you can do intellectually to understand the market. Now it's just a matter of doing it. And he said, well, what's the worst that can happen? And I said, look, the worst that can happen is we lose everything. We lose everything, all our life savings, our home, everything. But I don't think we will. And he said, okay, well, he said, you've got my support. And you really need to have that, especially when you are playing with the family's money, because at the end of the day, I was ultimately designated wealth builder. And so the risk was in my corner.
Sure.
And so what I did, I had my first deal. I bought 2 properties side by side. I used every cash resource I could. I mean, probably nowadays, certainly you wouldn't get that loan. I had 3 children by then. The last one was 1.5 years old. So I remember with a toddler, I went along to the inspection and I signed the deal with an anticipation of building something on that block, and then went on to design it and build and construct 10 townhouses, which was a big one. Like normally you would think you would start with something more modest and renovate it and so on. That wasn't my story. I went straight for financial freedom. That's really what happened. After a grueling 3 years where I just, honestly, a lot went wrong. My builder nearly didn't make it. Things happened that were less than ideal. We released into the global financial crisis. So it wasn't a bed of roses. But notwithstanding that, by the time I finished, the bank turned to me and said, congratulations, you're financially free. Not only of debt, but potentially if I just sat there on that asset, I maybe wouldn't have had to work again.
Yeah.
But what did I do? I went and reinvested it in the next deal, and so the next was history. So property development became the conduit to freedom for me, insulation and then freedom, and the ability for me to keep my husband home if I needed to. And that was fun and dynamic and interesting. So from then on, we ended up attracting consortiums of investors, putting deals together, and I could do multiple deals at a time. And it was fun, but it was also exhausting and stressful and very risky, really, quite honestly. I knew what I was doing. I had a good experience behind me, but you're playing with a lot of money, and it's not all your money, obviously. So to that end, nothing comes cheap. Nothing comes easy. You know, you've got to pay the piper somewhere along the lines.
And you did. You did, because things came to an end, didn't they?
Yeah, well, every deal, you're only as good as your last deal. So over the next 10 years, I went on to build about $42 million worth of real estate. And to the most part, it was a very, very successful and satisfying career. In 2016, though, my builder went into liquidation for $35 million and very nearly took all of us, all his suppliers and his property developers. And it was excruciating. It was excruciating. I was probably naive in that I previously had thought if you do the right thing, you will never get yourself into a legal debacle. But in that case, you still have to pay lawyers to have a conversation to defend yourself.
They're so expensive.
And they're expensive, and you're hemorrhaging money, and it's very stressful. So at that point I thought, you know what, I'm sick and tired of betting the house. There's got to be another way. My husband introduced me to a coach from New York, and interestingly enough, she started with my nutrition because she could see how stressed and run down and burnt out I was. And she basically said, you're no good to anyone in the state you're currently in. You have to start taking better care of yourself. Now, I was functional. You know, I was eating salads, but you can't operate with that level of stress and be your best self. The truth is, typically you're sleeping poorly. You wake the next day, you're already at a deficit. You might turn to sugar or caffeine to get through the day. You're fatigued in the afternoon, and so the sorry cycle continues, headaches and stomach aches and so on. And while you limp along through another day, you're reactive, you're not productive, you're not responsive, you are just surviving. And that is a fight or flight mentality. So quite interestingly, she started with my nutrition. And I was skeptical at first. I thought, well, you know, I'm fine. You know how you are. You're completely disconnected from your reality. I'm fine. But I really wasn't fine. And to my great surprise, it made a huge difference. It got my attention. Within about 4 or 5 days for me, well, I had a level of clarity I hadn't had, well, since pre-kids, so 15 years. And I thought, what's in this stuff? Like, this is amazing. And clearly, as a group, we're overfed and undernourished, quite honestly. And I had paid little attention to the science. I'd paid little attention to the advances over time. And this was just smart, efficient way to give yourself fuel, to stack the odds in your favour, to live a more healthy life. Now, interestingly, as my health improved, my friends all noticed, and, you know, really genuinely were going, what are you doing? Like, you know, that whole Harry met Sally phenomena, you know, I'll have what she's having. And they all jumped on. And lo and behold, I discovered virtual franchising.
Yeah, well, let's get into that, because it is a fantastic way to actually build a business quickly with very low investment. In fact, I think Tony Robbins actually said it's the smallest investment you can make to start any business. And I know at the moment there's a lot of people out there who are hurting, people who are looking for ways to build an income quickly. But a lot of them are not necessarily entrepreneurs. They need a little bit of help. And what I love about the model that you have is there's a lot of coaching involved as well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, gone are the days where you just flog someone a pack. That's sales 101, right? So really, these days there's much more elegance to it, where you get to partner someone in a transformation physically and then hopefully financially.
Yeah.
And that's where it's a place of service. And like any good business, if you serve your customers well, then word of mouth is a natural implication of that, a natural result of that. I was very skeptical of this whole philosophy of referral selling, network marketing, or virtual franchising. I probably was a very skeptical person around that whole philosophy.
Yeah.
But then when I looked at it, the last 30 units I built, do you know how many sold on realestate.com?
No, none.
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 Do you know how many sold through referral?
All of them?
All of them. And so I knew that the new economy was different. People are so skeptical today that unless they hear it from someone else that they know, love and trust, they mostly don't buy. So even think about it today. Say you need a window cleaner. You're going to turn around, you're more likely to ask your network, who do you know that cleans windows? And they're going to say Joe, Bob, Paul, whatever, and then you'll use them. You don't go just to the Yellow Pages equivalent. You just don't do that anymore. It's always referral selling. That's 101 where we're at today. It's a new economy because people are skeptical and time poor. They haven't got time to make a mistake, and they want to know that someone else has had a desirable outcome through the service or product you provide.
Actually, that's a really great way of looking at it, because I must be honest, network marketing or MLM, people are so skeptical of it. And when we first met, I went off and did some research on it myself. I did have an experience many years ago where somebody was trying to sell my mother something, and my mother eventually said to me, look, just please go to this lunch. I've got to get this one off my back. And I remember going, and there was this big fancy presentation, but all they spoke about the whole time was making money by recruiting people. There was never any focus on the product itself, which I found a bit strange, because surely you lead with the product. I've got this thing that's really good. And the other thing that was really weird about this is it was a one-time offer. You literally had to go to the back of the room. You had to be interviewed and give a $5,000 deposit, which for me is always a red flag. And then, and then when somebody signed up, there was a whole fanfare and hand clapping, and that is a pyramid scheme. But there is a whole raft of bona fide companies relying on this type of selling, because as you say, it's people rely on referral selling. And quite frankly, the bricks and mortar type of business model is dying. Why should companies pay thousands and thousands of dollars for rent when they can get an army of people out there who are invested, who have their own business, selling a really good product as well, because I think that's key to making this work, who can have financial freedom and who will go and coach other people as well. So I found when I broke it down like that, it started making sense to me. I think the biggest fear people have is talking to people about trying to sell them something. And that's not the way it works, because you do end up in the no friends club that way as well. People who do get involved, the first place they go is their family and their friends who don't necessarily want to buy. They feel icky about asking them to buy. And then they just give up, But it isn't that. It shouldn't be that. And the point is, you can build a bona fide business around this, and you will be coached. If you choose the right team to go with the right product, you will receive the coaching that goes with it. The other thing that was an epiphany for me, because I was doing some reading last week, is that the whole beauty of this is, yes, you sell and you build a team below you, but you build your own sales team. So you've got this duplication issue. And then it becomes about coaching them in business. So if you do any form of coaching, you'll do well in this space if you love the product, if it's a good product, because you're helping them build a future for themselves, residual income. I actually had a lady in my group Heads Over Heels recently. In fact, I reached out to her first, and she wrote back to me. We had a conversation, and she said, look, I've just lost my business, but I have residual income from this other business, which I started a few years ago, and that's what's keeping me going. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to really just debunk this myth about, oh my God, it's MLM and people immediately get their backs up. No, listen to what the product is. If it's a good product, you shouldn't be worried about, being sold a product. You don't want to just say no. But there are other people who, want to help other people build their businesses. I, for one, am always trying to buy local or through a small business now. And it's a good product.
Yeah, look, Angie, it's a legitimate pathway. I too, we're smart women. We do our homework. It's a distribution model that is a legitimate pathway, quite honestly. Yeah. So I've also dealt in bricks and mortar businesses, retail, have commercial, residential properties, done shares. I've done just about every form of business and continue to invest in multiple streams of income. But right now, look where we're currently sitting. You know, retail has died. It is excruciating. If you're in commercial property at the moment, if you're in shares, if you have even money in the bank, you know, you're not getting the return on investment. Same with property. So for me to help one woman with property, for instance, you'd have to have a residual income. You might buy a $500,000 property. You might get $20,000 a year rent on it. That might be netting about $13,000 a year rent. But you'd have to pay that off, that $500,000 off, to get that $13,000 net a year back to be truly residual. That's a ridiculous model. If you were to really break that down and look at it in terms of a comparison, that's not a pathway to great economic success or duplication. You know, the only way that you can truly make money is through leverage, and leverage is it. So you either leverage, you know, capital, or, you know, you can basically, in the property industry, it's about saying not one house but multiple. As this increases in value, you buy a second or a third or a fourth, but with that is a fair level of exposure as well. Or you leverage people. So if you have a business that employs over 500, you know, or if you have a business that's a large enough business, then obviously you've got leverage in that. Or beyond that, you are looking at leverage through and alongside people, which, as I said, my heartbeat is around helping women insulate themselves financially so that when their circumstances change, their lifestyle and health doesn't have to. And that's it. You know, we can't protect everyone against life. Things will still happen. Fires, floods, COVID-19, he will still come, go, leave, you know, something, you know, kids will still get sick. Stuff will still go on, and life will happen. But if you have that safety net, if you have that sense that, well, for all of that, I will be okay. And that's also a mindset. But there is an economic reality to that. So in the book that I wrote, The Pink Card Hat, I talk about the notion of resilience: mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. They're the 5 pillars that most people have come to know as living a resilient life. But I argue there's a 6th pillar, and that's finance. Because the truth is, as I said before, you can survive the cancer, but not the implication of the financial disruption of it. So if we can build an army of, and in my case it's women, because that's my heartbeat, but if we can help women insulate themselves financially to keep their families united, then that's an awesome thing. And it is, the cost of entry is low. So I'll give you another way of explaining it. When I was in property development, the cost of entry is really high. It's like $200,000 to $1 million. I'd have women come to me all the time and they'd say, Lou, can you help me? And I'd say, I can. Do you have $200,000?
Yeah.
And they'd go, well, no, I don't. Yeah. Okay. And that's, you know, the conversation would end. When you're playing with property, it's like you getting into a lift where the cost of entry to access that lift is $200,000 to $1 million. In the hope that you'll be elevated to level 5 of that lift. And then when the doors open, there'll be dancing girls, there'll be champagne, you'll have made it and you'll have elevated your position and everything is fine. But here's the deal, what no one tells you is that in property development, 1/3 of people, when those doors open, they're on the same level, Ange. They haven't gone up. After 1.5 to 3 years of blood, sweat and tears, they have not made money. When it's all said and done, they're property developers that are just surviving. They're not even making money. Now, God forbid that the lift goes down, that when those doors open after 1.5 years, you're on level 1 or below. You're in the basement. You know what I mean? So for me, online franchise or virtual franchising is like taking the stairs. That's where you're basically saying, okay, this is pretty much free to enter. It's good for your health. You're going to get fit in the spiral on the way up. There's a whole army of us in the stairwell. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. There are parties happening along the way, and incrementally you will be walking up each step. It may not feel as sexy and as attractive as the idea of that lift that opens, but the truth is incrementally you earn as you learn, as you are spiraling up those staircases. and it's a disproportionately generous return on investment. I mean, it's very, very generous, so that people can offset the cost of their products or services very easily. If all they're interested in is saving money, like diverting a proportion of their grocery bills, and being able to rebate or eat for free or have health for free, then in today's economy, that's attractive. But then, and look, 85% of pure food, right? That is giving people better bang for their buck, better productivity and clarity and strength and capacity. So the actual product is valuable, and to that end, it happens to fit where we're at now because it's home delivered and it keeps on the shelves and it's really affordable, right?
Actually, we haven't talked about what your product is. So what is your product?
Yeah, so in our case, we have a group called Nourish, Mind, Body, Soul, Self and Others. And so that is it's a philosophy around 5 things: nutrient-dense foods, protein pacing, intermittent fasting, hydration and exercise. Yeah. So what we do is we're all about enabling people to build capacity so they can get more done, in their life.
Yeah.
And as people say, I need a correction, either I'm looking for a weight correction, I need more energy, I need better sleep, I'm looking for healthy aging, or I'm looking for maybe better performance, then we're able to say, all right, well, let's look at an online food package that we can assemble for you to get those results. The food itself might involve protein shakes, superfood smoothies, bars, tonics, snacks, supplements, and in addition to whole foods that you're getting from your own kitchen.
Yeah.
And you put together a meal plan that basically includes both. And then there's a level of coaching and accountability to meet those goals. So over the next 30 days, our coaches or consumer coaches get alongside people as they begin to change their behaviour and introduce this nutrition into their life. And then as they have an experience of it, then obviously that is recorded and celebrated and understood. So it takes 21 days to make a habit. We're in the business of building better habits, essentially. And at the end of that 30 days, they have the option to continue, stop, or return it. So if they don't see a correction, whatever they've invested in their health, they get the money back, even if they've eaten all the food, right? And that's because it's a word of mouth enterprise. And the expectation is that we want people to have not just a good experience, we want them to have a compellingly great experience. So they actually, they become an irresistible beacon for what we represent. And so hence that's the philosophy, because we absolutely guarantee you're going to feel better. And if you don't, in the unlikely but possible event you don't, or in one case you don't open the package, then you can return it. So that's basically it. And then beyond that, as I said, 85% of people just continue to eat the food because they get addicted to feeling better, even once they've met their health goals. So they might have a correction where they've lost the 8 kilos. They come to lose the weight, but they stay for the community and the health benefits of greater clarity and better sleep or more energy, whatever it might be. Because often you are a little bit disconnected from what's going on with your body. So you think, oh yeah, I need to correct because of this urgent idea. But then when you see the benefits, that it has such a flow-on effect that's why you stay. When you actually get a taste of better health and better nutrition, you can't go back. You can't go back to doing what you were before.
Well, I think if we learned anything from this COVID-19, the 2 cornerstones of security are finance and our health as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
if we insulate people physically and financially, then we're doing something right. And look, this, once again, as skeptical as you can be, this model is withstanding even this pandemic. So it's delivered to people's doors. The food is able to be stored. compared to what's in the shops at the moment. I don't know about you, but currently for us, we've got coffee at $30 a jar, broccoli is $14 a kilo. There is no meat that can be found regularly. And if it is in the shops, then it's excruciatingly high priced. And, you know, barely pasta, any rice. So your standard offering is either not available, poorly presented, or exorbitantly priced. So to that end, if you have an offering that's stable, that people can rely on, but will give them better health during hard times, where they don't have to go to the shops, then it's a good time for it.
Actually, the cost is something that I wanted to talk about, because one of my clients is a nutritionist, and I mentioned your product to him, and he said to me, "Oh, I think it's expensive because they have to pay the downlines." Now, two things around that, because I do use your product. I'm one of your clients. It's $4.20 a meal, which is not expensive for a balanced meal, because you're right. I mean, there's a lot of, I suppose it's simple economic supply and demand. Some people call it price gouging, but the cost of fruit and vegetables has gone through the roof. And honestly, if you had to prepare a meal that has the 5 colors in it, it's not cheap.
No.
Not
and look, I think
$4.20.
it is all about the quality as well. I mean, you get what you pay for. You have to have, I mean, the food, when people say expensive, I often think, well, compared to what?
Well, it's not actually. It's not though, because his point was that, you know, we have to pay downlines, but somebody has to pay Westfield rents.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
I've got people who are friends who own shops in Westfield, and they say to me, some months we just work to pay the rent. So
exactly.
What this company is effectively doing is they're diverting all that money that they would pay Westfield and everyone else that they need to keep a bricks and mortar business, and giving it to people who are genuinely building their business. They're literally rewarding people who are building their business, as opposed to paying an expense.
You're taking out the middleman, and you're not paying for the warehousing and the distribution. Through the standard model, you're not paying for the rents and so on. So you're taking out the middleman, and basically the distribution point becomes through word of mouth. But the real cost in getting this food to the market is the actual quality. It's actually not in the distribution, it's in the quality. And so one of the reasons it's useful when you're choosing a network marketing company or a online franchise to go with, it's useful to pick a company that's been around at least 10 years, so it's been debugged and it's, you know, it basically has worked out its systems. Secondly, it has a reputation, you know, and they may not be the biggest in the world, but they might have a yearning to be the most trusted. Or, you know, and if it's in alignment with your values, I think that's the first thing. You know, regardless of which company you might look at going with, I think it's useful where it can be daily consumables, available to men, women, elderly, toddlers, pregnant women, and so on. And obviously, if it's food-based of the highest quality, not about necessarily weight loss, but about nutrition, then it stands the test of time, because when people are constricted financially, they may not be able to afford, with due respect, maybe makeup or hair products, but they will need always food. And so that's the first thing. And then you look at the culture of obviously the organisation, and you go, is that in alignment with my values? Is it maybe family-based? And in my case, it's family-based. There's a sense of real abundance. And I know and have met many of the people that are in the senior echelons of this organisation who are just good people. You know, they're good people. And you can tell from the philosophy and the way they behave when no one's watching. You know, the amount of product going out to firefighters in January, you know, that was amazing. The amount of product going out to hospitals now to help people on the front line and serve them with better quality nutrition, because often the people on the front line, whether they're fighting fires or floods or in the pandemic in hospitals, they're not taking care of themselves. They're absolutely petrified of eating hospital food. What are they getting? They're getting chips and cans of Coke. They're actually not looking after themselves. So if we can get product to them in a way that is reliable, health, and going to support their health, particularly under stress and with long hours in a fight or flight mentality, then I mean, that's gold. And where you have organisations actually donating that and having the facility for others to donate, then that's a good thing. And then I think lastly, it's about seeing yourself in that, having an authentic experience that it has to be that. If you're ever representing anything, it's your reputation. So word of mouth only works where you are believable. So in the window cleaner example, you're not going to recommend Fred unless you had a good experience of him cleaning your windows, right?
Exactly.
And it's exactly the same. So people are loath to recommend something they haven't had a good experience of. And so you want to make sure that you're coming when even if you are open to the prospect of another income stream or a vehicle for wealth, it's not all about that. If you're not a product of the product, then you're wasting your time, because people can sense when someone's trying to con them or get them or secure them or sell to them. We don't like that, So the whole essence of this is it's got to be authentic. It's got to be in alignment with your values, and it's got to be a philosophy that you agree with in regards to the way the company operates and the way the people within it do. And that can work right down to the little community that you are brought in with and the way you're coached and nurtured. And people know the difference between being sold a product and then left and abandoned with good luck with that as you go to the next, and someone who's actually walking you through step by step a transformation with your best interests at heart.
Well, actually, there's two elements of coaching in this, and it's just struck me when you talked about people buying the product and then getting the coaching, that it's no different to like a Jenny Craig, except a Jenny Craig, I think you have to go and see your consultant once a week, whereas with you're available, and the group is available, to Facebook group, isn't it, where they can support you and give you the everything that you need, I guess, to stay on track, to look after yourself. And sometimes, particularly if you're trying to lose weight, we need that as well. But as you said, there's many reasons that they can actually take this on. And I think this business actually also makes products for bodybuilders too. So it's not just weight loss. There's a whole raft of things that you do. The other side of the coaching, which, and you and I, given that I'm a coach, have spoken about this a lot, is really understanding that it's not just, well, here's your pack, good luck, and we'll see you. It's like, okay, I'm going to help you build this business. I'm going to hold your hand every step of the way until you are comfortable to do it yourself, and you can then teach your people as well. And I'm still available to help you teach your people too. And that's really cool, because, I've worked in corporates as well, and I can't think of any business where I've had a mentor or somebody coaching me like that. Usually it's just get on with it. So that for me, I think, is an incredibly valuable part of this business too. I mean, literally you're making a small investment and it's not an investment to buy into the business. You just literally buy the product, which you eat or use, whatever business you decide to choose. So you are getting value for what you're paying. It's not a company where you've got to invest and then you can have the privilege of selling. That is a pyramid.
You eat your overhead. And look, as I said, truthfully, 85% of people will just eat the food, and that's it. You don't have an agenda for everybody to be referral sellers, because that's not everybody's imprint. They not everyone is comfortable with that. So when they come in, as you are doing your entry interview with them, you say, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
Actually, what are you looking for? What correction are you wanting? What life are you aiming for here? And for some people, they just want a convenient breakfast to replace tea and toast, because they know tea and toast is not stacking the odds in their favour. And that's it. That might be where it begins and ends for them. And it's just about efficient fuel that's affordable and convenient. End of story. If that's where it begins and ends, all good. And for 85% of people, that's where their comfort zone is. They're happy to spend money in exchange for a product that will be delivered to their door and give them maximum convenience, no questions asked. They never have to tell a living, breathing soul. That's how it works. But then there's about 11% of people who are just natural sharers. So if they're reading a good book, they're telling people about the book. If they've seen a good movie, they're telling people about the movie. If they've had a great experience, if they've lost 6 kilos, everybody knows. oh my gosh, the weight's just dropping off, or oh my gosh, I've got my mojo back, like I'm back, you know, and people feel that, and those people, they're just ignorance on fire. They're just telling people, and that's exciting and irresistible, and people go, right, I want what you're doing. Just put me on the thing, do the program with me.
When Harry met Sally, I want what she's got.
Yeah, I want what she's. And about 11% of people sort of stumble accidentally, and then income arrives in their account on a Tuesday, and they go, oh, what just happened? You know, and I've heard remarkable stories like that where it just sits there, and then suddenly they look at it and go, oh my gosh, they're almost like by surprise, pleasantly surprised that something has happened financially. Yeah. And that's a great thing to see. I love that when that happens. But there's about 4 or 5% of people for whom they come in and they're saying, beyond convenient fuel, beyond that, I'm looking for a supplementary income stream, just like any diversification, beyond shares and property. I'm looking for an income stream that's going to, particularly after COVID-19, just stand me in good stead for the test of time. That is nutrition-based, delivered to my door, low cost of entry, low risk. All I've got to do is maybe learn the skills to more elegantly be available in sharing this with people. But beyond that, the distribution, the legal side, you know, the branding of it, all of that is done. And for many of us, not everyone has the capacity to build their own business like you and I have. It's too overwhelming. And we have other competing priorities. We might have little kids that we're raising. You know, we've got maybe elderly parents that we're nursing. We might have pets that need, you know, we've got other competing priorities. We might have a portfolio of shares that we're looking after. And we haven't got capacity for all that, but we do have capacity for this. And they're the women that, you know, tend to come into our world who say, look, I have capacity for this, show me how. And it's just like any business. The success rates are the same as any business because it takes hard work. There's no such thing as a free ticket.
No, there
isn't. But if you're prepared to learn and you'd like a mentor, then this is a very generous facility for you to be able to have that safe place. And you do earn as you learn. Oh, yeah, earn as you learn.
I mean, I love the way you've described this to me as well today. And I guess the final thing I want to talk about for people listening, thinking, look, maybe I should look into this. People have this fear of selling. And I have a dear friend who is an absolute guru at teaching people how to sell. And for me, he changed my view of selling completely one day when he said to me, look, you have to have integrity when you sell. You know, you have to know that what you're selling is good. And if what you have, whether you're a coach, whether you're selling a product, whatever the case is, if you feel that what you have is valuable to people and they need it, you are letting them down if you don't tell them about it. Another way he described it to me is if you saw someone drowning and you had a life vest, would you throw it to them? Of course I'd throw it to them. So he said, well, if you saw somebody who had an issue that you could help with, why wouldn't you tell them? So for me, that really changed the view of selling. And, you know, yes, the whole snake oil salesman thing is icky, but that's not what you do. People who are successful in virtual franchising are the ones who approach it from a view of love and not a hidden agenda as well. You know, like you say, 89% of people will only ever use the product. So if you approach it from a perspective of love, if you know that they need something financially, then yes, of course, you know, approach it from that. But if you have integrity, people can smell it. People will pick up on it. And I think you've already said to me, you know, they know when you're giving them a whole heap of horse manure. But yes, this whole concept.
And I'd add to that, you know, we've become more sophisticated. Just as the science of food technology has become more sophisticated, so has selling. People are more skeptical than ever before. They don't want to be sold to. They're happy to know that you exist and what you represent, but they want to choose you when they're ready, in their time frame, if they need it. So the elegance of the profession of true online franchising is one where you are not stimulus response, scattergun selling to everyone that will listen. That is old school. You know, that's pre-1996. That's pre-internet. That's where you had water coolers in your garage, and then you had to go door to door and flog them off to whatever poor chump that, was unsuspecting enough to be in your way. That's the old school. So the new way is essentially about listening. And with discrimination, only presenting your solution should it be a genuine solution for a problem that someone has or a desire that is unmet, right? And in the event that someone declares to you a position that you can help with, then you ask for permission. You say, if I could show you a way to change that, would that be of value to you? Because some people don't want to change, and they don't. They actually just want to be
comfortable.
Right. So sometimes if I have someone in my ear going, rah, 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 this is, everything's wrong, I'll go, well, is that something you want to change? And it stops them in their tracks, because they think, well, because many of us are comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We don't really, really want to change it. And so that's fine. If they don't want to change, then I go, okay, well, that's fine, because it's so annoying when someone gives you a solution if you really have no intention of change. But on the flip side of that, if someone actually says, I desperately have a burning desire to change my state, to change how I feel about myself or my life, can you help me? Then you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Whatever skills and resources, you're going to bring in all your coaching experience. You're going to bring in these tools and skills. You're going to bring in this food and nutrition. You're going to bring it all in and offer that to them in the hope that you can get them from where they are to where they want to be next.
Yeah.
And that's this. That's the elegance of this. It's another tool in your toolbox to assist someone for a transformation to be a better human. Because, and someone once said this to me, you can live 10 years where you live the same year every year for 10 years, or you can live 10 years where every year you grow, evolve and develop, so that who you were last year is not who you are this year, right? And you know what I mean. You see someone at Christmas functions, you haven't seen them for they have not moved, they have not changed, they're still stuck in the same place they were, 4 years ago, right? And whereas there is the life learners, the people who go, no, I actually desperately want to evolve beyond today, then it's different, I'm reading a beautiful book at the moment. I'm telling everyone about it. It's called What Alice Forgot. And it's Leanne Moriarty, and it's this book where this woman is at a gym and she knocks herself out. When she wakes up, she thinks it's 1998. She thinks it's 10 years earlier, right? Yeah. And she is shocked by who she's become next. Like, she's a skinnier and wealthier and technically more beautiful version of who she once was, but a way lonelier one. And then the book is the story of her coming to terms with that evolution. And as a person reading it, you start thinking, well, how much of my choices today are deliberate, and how much am I going to accidentally just slide into tomorrow, and then in a year's time I'll be in exactly the same spot.
Yeah, I see that as well with a lot of people who I speak to around, COVID-19, saying, look, is there anything I can do to help you? There are people who are proactively going out and doing something, and then there are the ones who are just saying, no, I'm just going to wait for it to pass and things will go back to normal. I'm not sure everything. I don't think we will ever have the same world as we had before in terms of normal. It will be different when we come out of this, and I think business will be different too. But you're right, there are people who are comfortable just coasting and, I guess, expecting the world to give them what they need, as opposed to actually going out and having that internal locus of control and saying, no, I'm in control of my life. I can't control the wind, but I can certainly trim the sails to accommodate the wind that's blowing in my direction. And those are the people who will be the ones who step up. They will be the ones who buy the product and say, look, I want to get healthy. They might be the ones who will say, look, I'm sick and tired of living from paycheck to paycheck. I think it's Warren Buffett. And incidentally, both Warren Buffett and Tony Robbins invest in network marketing or virtual franchise businesses. So it is a bona fide model, provided it's the right business. But as Warren Buffett puts it, if you work and get paid for your time and you don't have a passive income, you will work until the day you die. And that for me, I learned in 2007 through the global financial crisis when I got made redundant by a big American company. And here I am, a single mother. I did not have savings because everything went into my child. In fact, if I'd had a husband and his father had been around, I'd be a much richer person right now. But I really learned at that point that there is no job security and you cannot rely on one income as well. But Lou, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I love talking to you. I find you so inspirational as well. You've given me so much clarity today around virtual franchising and the possibilities and what it really is and what it can be for people. And I hope that people watching this will understand that too, because, it is an opportunity. You just have to listen and decide whether it's for you. And most people don't listen. They'll just go, no, I know what it is, and shut you down immediately. If people want to get hold of you, where can they find you?
Well, thanks, Ange, and thanks for having me on today. It's been lovely to be part of this chat. And I like it when people are skeptical, because I was like that myself. I was like that, but I remember as an entrepreneur, I'm also very open. So if something's not working, I like to change it. I don't want to be that same person at Christmas next year who's singing the same song of despair. So, it's been an honour to be part of this. And if we've helped people understand, or even just open their minds a little to the possibilities that are out there beyond, the cubicle,
yes, then
great thing. So you can find me at thepinkhearthat.com.au or Louise at thepinkhearthat.com.au, Facebook Louise Fitzgerald-Baker. I'm about the only hyphenated person out there, or LinkedIn the same. So there's, that's a ray to my indecision, double-barreled name.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And it isn't for everyone. I don't have an agenda to appeal to everyone either. But it is a great vehicle for those seeking the change. And to that end, we'd love to have a chat. And, if it's ever a fit for you, then, we can see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been my pleasure. This has been another edition of Heads Over Heels TV. We'll catch you next time.
This episode of Head Over Heels, the podcast for female entrepreneurs, has ended. But be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to help you create the profitable and successful business and life you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.